So, Tron, you and I go way back. I mean, you're an old North Poker. I cut my
Yes,
teeth
sir.
coaching at North Poke under Bobby Sandquist and Jack Christensen and those guys, and you're a North Poker too. But I know North. I was at a reunion for North Poke this summer, and North Poke's grown a little bit since you were there.
They're knocking on the door of, if the association goes to five classes in all the sports, they'll move to, on the boys side, they'll more than likely move to 4A, in baseball and basketball.
Yeah,
3A will be a little bit, or excuse me, wrestling will be a little bit different, but
they're already
football they
4A
have.
football. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So, how made you graduate with from there?
Mid 60s,
Yeah.
now they've got, double that and more, probably 150,
Well, I
in their
talked to
graduating
Joe,
class.
Joe Ingersoll, graduated, was on the team, one of the teams I coached, and I talked to him. He said he graduated 65, and the lower elementaries are over 200. So
Yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah, for sure.
So
For
can you
sure.
believe sitting here as Iowa State fans, we're pretty much a top 10 football team. We got one of the best basketball teams in the country, one of the best women's basketball teams in the country, one of the best wrestling teams in the country. I mean, we would have dreamed, we would have never, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we would have said this day would never come.
Exactly. They, I remember sitting in the stands, when Colorado would come to town or Nebraska, and you were just hoping to keep it close. And you huddled in with the people because there wasn't that many people there, and you huddled in tight just to stay warm. And now the facilities are awesome. If you have a chance to get into the Suit Cup end zone, you can get out of the rain, get out of the sun, keep warm, and we're more than relevant now, more than relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to step back every once in a while and think, our football team is so good, getting so much national press. I think we get a lot of doubters out there still. But basketball is the real deal. Monday night, I can't wait to see our new bigs that we've got, because I think that was, no offense to Rob Jones, but I think we probably upgraded a little bit on our bigs this year, and I keep hearing great things about this freshman shooter too. So
Yeah, just to talk about Rob Jones a little bit. Clearly, he was coached, but probably more importantly, he was willing to be coached
right.
because the progression that he made. Now how high was his ceiling? Well, we can debate that, but he got to his ceiling without a doubt, and that is his was his willingness to be coached. TJ knows what he wants, and he's able to, between himself and his assistants, they're able to articulate that. But credit to Rob for his willingness to be coached and get to that ceiling. It was, to me, I enjoyed watching Rob play. I did,
I did
because
too. Yeah.
you watch him in pregame warm up. Oh, you watch him in pregame warm up, and he's working on this 5 to 8 foot jump hook. That push shot that he would do, and I don't remember the particular game on the top of my head, but I know his senior year. There was a game where he hit one of those shots in a crucial time, and I remember I was talking to my son. I'm like, okay, we've seen him do this in pregame. He knew the shot he was going to take. He didn't spend his time messing around on something he wasn't going to take. And then, and like I said, I don't recall the game itself,
I
what
think I
game it
do. I don't
was, but
remember the team, but I think I remember the moment. Yeah.
sure, sure. So, yeah, and then the new guys coming on the roster, uh, you know, you look at that their size, and I was fortunate enough to get a chance to talk to TJ toward the end of the season last year, and he was just talking about what he recruits, and at that time he said they were looking for some bigs, and he's got his guys, he's got this list, which I'm sure most all coaches do, right? But at the college level, but he's got these guys that he's looking for, and I'm looking forward to now that he's kind of settled in, meaning TJ, I think he's getting his guys, his players, and that they're going to be effective. And I mean, I'm looking forward to watching play. for sure.
I saw, I saw him interviewed, and I've never met TJ, but maybe if I did, it was maybe when he was under McDermott, but I don't know him at all. But um, he asked some interviews, and they said he got to spend so much time building more relationships with his current kids because he didn't have to spend that much time in the portal. So him and Campbell both in this wild, wild west we have of the transfer portal have figured out a way to keep kids in Ames, Iowa. I mean,
Right.
and whatever they're doing, they need to keep it up. I mean, I think obviously we're staring down the barrel of some big changes coming up in the world of the NIL again, but yeah, whatever they're doing. I mean, and Deshaun, I'm really looking forward to watching Deshaun because first of all, he's got a great basketball name, and second of all, the highlights I've seen, he's just seems like he could tear the rim off at one point, and just is a little more skilled. Maybe I hate to even compare him to Rob because I loved Rob too. I don't think Rob made the ceiling. Rob was standing on the roof before the year was over. I mean,
Agreed.
he maxed out. But I just think he's got a few more gifts, maybe that we just have to make sure that he's got Rob's work ethic and his energy and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, for sure. I was able to just kind of see how when we watch Rob as he progressed over the last few years, if we know that these guys are going to get coached, all right, and then if these guys just kind of follow along kind of Rob's mold, I think these preseason rankings and predictions, they can be accurate, and they can fill those, and typically we're like, oh, I don't know if we can be there at the end. But as I watch these guys and watch the staff work and how they interact together, I think they can be there at the end of the season.
The thing, people might not know who you are, but I've talked to nauseum about my coaching background here, but you were the head coach at North Polk and been around basketball pretty much your entire life, and so we've seen a lot of things come and go. And the thing that blew me away last year is in the last 2 years, for that matter, how many times teams would just throw it to us. I mean, we would be in such great position 2 passes away that we would be just standing there and they would pass it to us, or we would be able to pick off a pass on the backside pretty much almost at will sometimes. And that was just, that isn't talent necessarily. That is just being drilled to death on where you need to be.
And that's totally agree. I totally agree. It's their schematic, their scheme defensively. Now with the rule change last year on you have to be there, a couple of days before the guy drives if you want to get a charge call. But still schematically they haven't changed much. They're still heavy on that weak side, rotation. And we went. I think if I remember this correctly, we went to BYU and we got ran down there.
Yeah.
Because they would get that one more, they would swing that, and they hit that open three. Because they would drive that baseline, or weak side guard would rotate over, and then we had a 2-on-1, and so our weak side D has got to close on it. Well, they wouldn't swing the one more and hit that open three, but that was at home, at BYU. So then BYU comes up and they tried that same tactic, but the pressure, Hilton, that's been talked about forever, but, playing at Hilton, and then Iowa State was able to cover those shooters, and they didn't make that one more pass,
right.
And I'm not 100% sure how TJ and his staff look at it, but, they're probably playing percentages on that, using some analytics. I don't know, I know that they've got somebody on staff that focuses heavily on that, so they're playing percentages, which is great, which is good.
Sure. I mean, that's the Moneyball thing, right? I mean, they're using the schematics or whatever, but yeah, I know. I mean, I don't know how many points Vegas thinks Hilton's worth, but I mean, BYU is a tough place to play too. I mean,
it is. Yeah.
Isn't it a place where Melvin Edgem flipped off their fans or something?
Yeah. That was. I think so. He told them that he thought they were number one. So.
Right. Exactly. So it was it's a tough place to play too. So yeah, no, I mean, I just hope, the Tamans of the world and Curtis Jones can stay healthy, and we can max those guys out too. I mean, because that's the difference between football and basketball is that one major injury can totally change your lineup versus
Mhm.
what's going on with the football team right now. We are down so many linebackers and haven't missed a beat. This Ryland Barnes kid from Bread, his mom and dad farm up by Woden Crystal Lake or Crystal Lake. I met he's my son's age, and I met him when he was in high school and graduated in high school in 2023, and now he's playing middle linebacker in the Big 12. I mean, it's that, and if that's Taman Lipsey or Curtis Jones or Keyshawn Gilbert, totally changes our whole process on basketball. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, hopefully we can roll some of these early games, but that Marquette game is going to be big, and and going to Maui is going to be big, and
Yes, for sure, for sure, for sure. It's the thing is with their system though, and maybe call it a system, but with their approach, if they can guard it, okay, they'll always be in giving themselves a chance to win.
right.
They're not going to rely on just being able to make a jumper, when they need to make it. And granted, you gotta put the biscuit in the basket at some point. But if they guard and they can play team D, and looks like to me they've got a couple of rim protectors. I mean, even Rob wasn't going to be jump over the top of you, but he understood how to protect the rim. They've got a couple rim protectors. They're always going to be in a spot. They're always going to be in a spot to have a chance to win the game.
So what do you hear right now? I mean, are we healthy coming into the preseason here? I mean, are we come out? I know in the past, I remember we had guys who would seem like we show up to Hilton, and all of a sudden there's somebody in street clothes sitting on the sidelines. I mean, have you heard are we healthy at this point?
Yeah, I have not heard. I've seen a few video clips of practice, and I've seen everybody playing. But I don't know. I don't know if TJ's quite like Matt,
Right.
with Will McLaughlin
He's
was
got a
just day
broken
to
leg.
day.
He's got a broken leg, but he's day to day.
He's day to day, right? So but they want to keep that stuff pretty tight, which that's fine. I respect that.
Oh,
You don't have
sure.
to be out there telling everything. So, but I have not heard. I have not heard if we've got anybody that's going to be not playing right away. Sometimes that stuff leaks out, but I haven't heard it.
So did you hear that Yormark is possibly going to have us do like the NFL next year and have to have injury reports every week?
I did. I saw that. I saw that.
That would be interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, NIL obviously has changed. When you throw money at something, it's changed everything. But I don't know. I mean, you're still dealing with some kids that barely are not considered a minor at some point. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I don't. I'm not sure what their reasoning is. Is this supposed to help Vegas or?
I think so. I honestly think.
Okay.
I mean, that's my opinion. I think it's betting driven. I mean, and it probably in his mind, because he's been in that world. I mean, it's probably going to keep people from screwing around with things a little bit with the odds and stuff. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm like fishing. I am the worst fisherman in the world. I am the world's worst sports bettor. So that's why I leave that to my kids. I never.
Yeah, I'm not even going to remotely weigh in on what the understanding is, because I don't know. I'm not a bettor.
Yeah, so one of Thomas's friends last week had a parlay on DraftKings, and he was because his kid was texting me. He's not a kid; he's 25, but he was texting me, and they had like a 4-leg parlay on who scores first in these NFL games, and if he hits it, he wins 20 grand. The first 3 hit.
Oh no!
And he cashed out for $3,300. And then Kareem Hunt was the next one, and Kareem Hunt scores first.
Oh, he
in the
did.
Chiefs game, so he would have got 20 grand. So
well,
that's why I don't do it. That would just drove me crazy.
I know. I wouldn't even have been able to probably watch the game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, heading into homecoming with Texas Tech this week. I mean, I thought this was going to be 2 undefeated teams in the Big 12, and it hasn't turned out that way. They've lost a couple, and I as a hobby, I kind of listen to the opponent's podcast a little bit, and when I listened to the UCF one, I kept thinking, man, their podcast guys were telling their listeners that the season's over. And so I was expecting UCF to possibly come in and fold up the tents. Obviously, that didn't happen. I mean, UCF came in and gave us everything we possibly could, but they're not. People in Texas Tech aren't real happy with the way things are going right now either. So, I mean, have you got any feeling on, kind of where we're going, what's going to happen on Saturday? They took the rain out of the forecast, looks like, right?
They did. It's going to be cool. Be nice football weather. Doesn't look like it's going to be windy, so that's good. I watch us play. I think that the first half, meaning of games, we've been having a little bit of an issue. Maybe the staff wouldn't call that. Yeah. And then once we get to halftime and those coaches are able to, to coach their guys up. And I saw somebody do a breakdown of what, who'd we play? We played UCF last, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
And how they were kind of running all over us, and they broke down what changes the linebackers made. Simple stuff, subtle, wasn't complex. They didn't reinvent the wheel, and now the linebackers were in position, and it was tough sledding for UCF in their run game, right? And it's like they said, well, I don't mean that because it's a holistic for them, but it's almost like they said, we need to make sure that they're going to throw it to beat us here. Right. And
that guy couldn't throw the leg. I mean,
no. And so, it's the the testament to the staff. And I know it's all about cliches, but it's a next man up. And these guys have stepped in and filled these spots, and I saw a press conference with Campbell this week, and he talked about possibly Will McLaughlin getting back on the field. Yep. Which, that would be awesome. Will's his brother is married to my daughter. So, yeah. Really? My middle daughter married, Will's brother, Jake. Jake played at UNI. Wow. Yeah. Played at UNI. Harlan people, obviously.
Yeah. Right. Will tackled my Will in the dome in the playoffs and football. Because we played Harlan in the semifinals and
yep.
We've got a video of Will getting tackled by Will McLaughlin. So
sure.
Luckily he survived it. So
yeah. So so Will's family, the McLaughlins, they farm, and so that's my day job. And so Will come out each fall and ride in the combine a little bit. That gets his fix because he wants to head back there when he's done at Iowa State.
Will is on a billboard in Pocahontas.
McLaughlin?
Correct.
He is. Okay.
Yeah, he's on. I don't remember the advertisement, but I'm driving.
I think Pivot Bio, maybe.
It might be. Yeah. So he
ag product,
NIL thing or something.
Yeah. So he comes out and he'll ride in the combine in the fall, just because we're close, we're just 10 minutes from Ames, and, gets his fix. And he was talking about his progression and his physical therapy and his healing and kind of what his goal is and where he wants to get back. And he's working hard to get back on the field this fall. So, I don't know the technique of, the what you got to do to get back after, he hadn't taken a snap since the bowl game. Right. So, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means he comes back for whatever game it is and he gets 2 snaps, or if it's 15 snaps. I don't know. I don't know what goes into that. So
I don't think we're going to, even if, if he was healthy this weekend, I still don't think we see him till Kansas, because if he plays those last 4 games, he can still keep his red shirt. Same with Bacon and Willich. I think if we're going to see those guys again, it's not going to be till Kansas City. But if Bacon comes back and is effective, that is a miracle recovery.
That's a game changer for sure.
Right. It's a game changer, but it's also, divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, to get that kid back in the field after it happened to him at the beginning of the year. So, but we can.
Well, I know Will McLaughlin speaks highly of the whole linebacking core. He speaks highly of all those guys, even those guys that, quite possibly at the beginning of the year, they were not thinking they were going to get snaps, right?
Right.
And now they are getting snaps. And Will says that film session, on the field, practice, game time. I mean, he speaks highly of all those guys that are on the field now. So which that's great to hear because, they're locked in, and they have been locked in, and that whole next man up. Well, that's true. Yeah,
And they're
it's
also,
true.
the thing that I love about it is there's a lot of small town kids. I mean, you got Will,
Oh, yeah.
you got Bo Goodwin, who graduated 35 from Kingsley Pearson last year. And then you got Rylan, who won a Class A state championship at Britt. So, I mean, and he, we interviewed him on here right after that happened because Caden Madsen, was the one to return the touchdown. And so I got Caden and he got Menzoon and Rylan on here. And I asked Rylan, or I said, do you think you were going to play that day? And he kind of hemmed and hawed, and they really kind of said, no, I don't think he really did think he was going to play.
Right.
But now he looks the part. And so does Goodwin. I mean,
Yeah.
Goodwin body slammed some kid in one of the games. I mean,
Oh yeah, got him in the backfield. Yeah.
so he fits
Yeah.
the part too. So I mean, boy, I tell you, you can't talk enough about finding these kids. I mean, Bo Goodwin was going to South Dakota State. And we watched his highlight film and got him late. And what a find. I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
Rylan's the same. Rylan comes from a fantastic high school program too. So him being successful and understanding the game doesn't surprise me a bit. But
I think with the staff and okay, so we know that NIL is I mean, that's a major thing, a lot of money being thrown around. Can everybody match everybody else's, salary cap, if you will? Well, no, but with keeping a guy like Darian Porter, what's his 6th year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that and he's basically a special teams guy, basically, and now he stayed on, got coached, back to that wanting to be coached again, that and the staff, and now his name's he's talked about in mock drafts.
Oh, right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's to look and get caught up in the NIL from me, a fan standpoint, getting caught up in the NIL and, what's kind of money, who's paying this, what's this, but then you look at a guy like Darian Porter and you're like, oh, that's impressive. That's really good. He stayed on, he's been coached. Now he could have left, right? And I'm not getting time, what I want to get, but he stayed and we know what he did at Iowa. He had a couple of touchdown saving tackles and obviously the 2 interceptions. The first one was huge, so.
Well, he's got a lot of talent. I mean, he's a great track guy. It's from Bettendorf, right? I believe.
Yes. Yeah. That's over in Iowa City.
So he's got some tools. He has some tools, but yeah, I mean, it's exciting to hear him talked about in the draft too. But man, but don't you think Campbell can just point to these guys that are playing on Sundays now, saying these guys did what we asked, they didn't transfer, and now they're getting paid? I mean, I don't care what you're talking about with NIL money. It still ain't NFL. It's still not NFL money. I mean,
true.
NIL is like a the DraftKings of the NFL. I mean, you're getting money instantly, but you're not getting the long-term stuff. You're not getting a pension. You're not getting all of the benefits from being in the NFL. So if you can stick it out and end up on a roster, I mean, you can just look at the contract Brock's probably going to get after this year. Look at the contract David Montgomery just got, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And then the Cyclones East and the New York Jets. How many guys we have playing out there? I mean,
I know. Well, I think that one of the things that they may have used, as a talking point, I can't think of the kid's name. Who was the safety that transferred?
Oh, it went to the Ole Miss.
Yeah, and then he didn't cut it there, and now he's like at West Texas State or something.
Yeah.
Not Kamari Cotton Moy.
Short guy that could hit like crazy.
Isheem Young.
Yeah, got booted out of the Fiesta Bowl.
Yep, Isheem Young, I believe that is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a talking point for those guys, meaning Campbell and his staff. Hey, no ill will on Isheem, but it didn't work out. So it doesn't always work out for the best. And then you hear these stories of was it TJ Tampa? one of those corners. Who's in the NFL this year?
TJ, he's with the
Must be
Raiders.
TJ.
They got the
Maybe
call from
it's
Georgia.
yeah,
Oh
and
yeah.
basically said, you know what, I'm gonna stay here. I just need you to help me get my parents to games. And just it paid off for
Well,
him.
but that's the dirty side of this. It's been going on forever, but at least it's a little more out in the open. I mean, Kirby. Well, I'm not going to. I shouldn't say his name. I'll probably get sued. But one of the coaches from Georgia called one of our defensive linemen last year in the middle of the season.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I've heard
mean,
that story. Yeah,
that's slimy as hell.
yeah, yeah.
I guess it's a little.
So
I don't know.
it's. I just think it's the situation that they've got right now, meaning Iowa State and the balance of their older guys being coached, getting young guys, getting some guys to fill in. I think obviously it's great because we're 7-0, but but it just the balance looks awesome. It looks awesome.
Well, Craig McDonald's another one. I mean, no ill will to Craig McDonald, but he chased the money at Auburn and it didn't work out well. But I
Yeah.
haven't heard specific names, but I know there's been some guys that have gone that route. I'm not saying I don't know if it was Craig, I don't know if it was Ashim or whatever. I don't have no idea, but I know there's been some guys that have gone that route that have wanted to come back, and we told them to take a leap. I mean,
Sure, that could be. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about that. So
yeah, I mean, it's
you
crazy
know,
that we're sitting here 7-0, possibly being 8-0, and how very Iowa State is it that we win a game, we go down a spot, and we don't play and we go down a spot in the polls. I mean,
yeah,
and
yeah. It's they talk about the pundits or so and so forth talk about who's going to make the playoffs and Iowa State's mentioned, and that's good, obviously, because they're undefeated. But it's if they just keep winning, which obviously it's in their own hands. The respect will come because you don't have a
sure,
choice.
right.
It's just going to show up. So
Well, I mean, we got to be. I mean, this month in November is going to be tough. I mean, Texas Tech isn't playing that great right now, but it's still a Texas team, and they're going to have athletes. And
mhm.
I think they're in a little bit of a quarterback controversy right now with Morton and Hammond trying to figure out who's going to play. But Taj Brooks is the real deal. Their tailback. So, and I know that there's been some negative press about how good their secondary is, but when Mauser stands up and says they're good, I mean, they're going to have athletes. There's no doubt. And I think somebody told me, maybe I'm thinking of the UCF game, but they're going to be some of the bigger D backs that we've seen this year so far too. But it's kind of funny, I was telling you, I listened to some of the opponents' podcasts. I've listened to 2 Texas Tech ones, and they're always bitching about the weather, and they're worried it's going to be cold, and they're being kind of negative towards their kids a little bit. And one of their good new quarterbacks is pretty small, and they got dinged. I think it's Hammond. They got dinged up a little bit. Now they mentioned this other kid named Cam Brown playing, who's taken like 4 snaps all year. But they're going through they really have a lot of respect for Iowa State's defense. They're talking about how good we are and all this stuff, yada yada. In 2 full podcasts, they never mentioned a single Iowa State player by name ever. They don't mention Rocco Beck. They don't mention anybody by name. And I keep thinking, how can you be talking about a game when you're playing somebody and you have no idea who even is on the other side of the ball? I mean, that just
Right.
showed a little disrespect to me, in my opinion. But
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got to be disrespect. In my mind, I lean to that because, I mean, as far as what Rocco's done, and then the receivers that with oh
Higgins and
Higgins and
Jalen
Jalen
Noel,
Noel, those guys are good. I think the offensive line
right.
clearly has progressed, and the backs are Carson Hansen. He's who would have thought, and then with Jalen Jackson, and even I think Sama ran well last game.
Right.
I thought that might have been his best game this season, just as far as how hard he was running.
Well, I mean, all 3 of them bring something different. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Sam is a home run hitter because it's so fast. and Jackson's a little bit of a scat back, and Hanson has got a little Christian McCaffrey in him. I mean, you know what I
He
mean?
does.
I mean, he can when he hits a hole, he's a bigger guy and can run over some guys, and then has got that speed to get upfield. So,
Yeah.
you know, I you know how we're just making a joke about Campbell keeping everything so close to the vest is that I just hope that we see Hanson in uniform on Saturday, and some of these other guys that got dinged up a little bit too. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Who
So,
knows? So,
tell me, you know, you've gone to a lot of Iowa State games in both sports. What is your most memorable live Iowa State game that you remember seeing as a fan?
you
What's the first thing that
know,
comes to mind?
the first one that comes to mind is Oklahoma State. The kid missed the free throw. It gets to DeAndre
Under Kane. Yeah.
DeAndre Kane's hands, who throws the pass up to Naz. You know, he wouldn't have had to, but he did. And Naz hits that three at the buzzer to tie it. That one is like, yikes, but then it's always fun to beat the Hawkeyes. So, that just what's that kid's name for Iowa that Naz was guarding him and he couldn't handle him in the first half. Didn't he have like 29 in the first half? Was it Aaron White or no? Who was it?
Aaron
Was it
White
Utah?
was the kid that was guarding Niang, I believe.
Yeah, but no, it was somebody for the Hawkeyes went crazy
Yeah,
in the first half.
yeah, I don't remember.
Aaron White or the other kid, Utah, one of the two.
Oh, it's
Well,
Jared, it was Jared Utah because I think he had 2 points in the second half.
yeah, and they ended up putting Matt Thomas on him,
Yeah.
and he gets two, and it's late, and they, how Fred would always like to throw that ball to George, call it the medium block, but really it was about 12, and George would be patient, and he'd look and check over his shoulder, and he hook steps him, and then gets that layup, and then Utah missed that putback, not Utah, Woodbury,
Yeah.
Adam Woodbury missed that putback. That was a pretty good game. That was really good.
The Oklahoma State game, Thomas and I were there, and we're putting our coats on. And if you go back and watch the highlight, and then the place goes absolutely bananas, and then you go back and watch the highlight, DeAndre's asking for the ball back. So he's running down the floor as a trailer, and he's looking at Naz, and there's no way in hell Naz is going to pass it. I mean, because wasn't like the week prior he had hit one or the year before at Oklahoma State, he done the same thing to him.
He did the same thing, yeah, down there, yeah,
same year.
Yeah. I don't know. I know that it's. Yeah, I know that he's got two of those against Oklahoma State. Yeah,
that was one of those moments when he missed. That kid was like a 90% free throw shooter.
Yeah,
a free throw. It was similar to the Texas game when Jake and those guys were playing, and Boddicker was shooting a free throw for Texas, and it was so loud, and that was the end of the game. That was kind of how that game ended too. So yeah,
sure,
that was a good.
A fun game, which I don't necessarily remember. I mean, Iowa State won, but I don't remember. I just remember a fun game was when Jay Billis was doing the color. I don't remember who the play-by-play was, and they played Kansas. And Fred had saw that Kansas's transition D was not that good. And they would score, and Iowa State would go boom, boom, dunk, boom, boom, layup. And it's like, that part's like crazy. I mean, I remember Jameel McKay, he's playing D under the rim, and then one of their wings has a dunk, and they get the ball out, and McKay just sprints the floor and has a dunk at the other end. I mean, in a flash.
And I remember that too, because I think the guy that dunked it for Kansas started talking to our crowd. And before he got to half court, Jameel had dunked and Self about had a coronary watching this guy talking crap, and then he gives up a dunk on the other end. So yeah, that was a good one too. What about football? What about football? We got about 4 minutes left, and we're gonna have to go. What about football?
Football, you look at that Oklahoma State game there, Paul Rhodes. That was a good game, but that was it 4 overtime game when who was the quarterback? Was it Steele James or was it
against Iowa?
Yeah, the 4 overtime game when Steele, and it's like he's got like 2 or 3 fourth down completions, like this crazy stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And then they run the option at the end, and they pitched that, and they scored that in the OT. That was fun.
Yeah, that was
That was
James White that scored the touchdown. And the ironic thing is that I think that was the year that we played Johnny in Hilton. No, excuse me, played Michigan and Hilton, and Johnny came out. I think it might have been the same year. And
Okay.
Thomas was in middle school, maybe. And we were
Yeah.
sitting in the parquet, and James White was sitting right next to Thomas and talked to Thomas the whole game. And so then when everybody stormed the court, you can go back and watch the video. It's Thomas and James White going down the court together
That's
to
awesome.
celebrate the win. Yeah. So, and then
That's awesome.
the middle linebacker for the Hawkeyes was Tyler Nielsen, who is a Humboldt kid. And actually, James White goes in for the touchdown. You can see Tyler almost got him, but yeah, too. Yeah.
No, that's fun stuff. You know, one of the ones that was fun for me to watch, even though it was a loss, was, and I always like to be critical, right, of coaches, and
we've been on the other side a couple of times too.
And we played Baylor, and we're up like 13 or something. And I remember with 6 minutes to go, 6 and some change, Scott Drew called his last timeout.
Oh, yeah, right. Yes.
And I remember I sat right there, Craig. I sat right there and said, you know, oh gosh, that's one of the stupidest things ever. What's he doing? And they come back and beat us, and we didn't beat Baylor for a long time after that.
Right.
I mean, it was many games. You know, I'm a Scott Drew fan. Usually you don't see those guys, those college guys, reinvent themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, usually they're just who they are. But you know what? Scott Drew, you know, he played all zone. You know, he have these big long guys, and they're playing all zone, and he reinvents how he's going to do all that. And they start guarding and playing man, changing stuff up. And, you know, clearly then they win the title, obviously. And, you know, so I'm a Scott Drew fan. I think he's really good. So.
And he took over a team that one of the players shot one of the other players.
I mean, right.
You can't get much lower than that, and then go into a national champion. So,
yeah.
Hey, Tron, I think we're going to have to cut it off here because I think my time's going to run out here. But it was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again. I mean, I want to talk about, you know, the earliest Iowa State basketball game that you remember sometime, and because I like going through those. You know, we had some really rough years that we've watched Iowa State basketball and football, for that matter, and just everybody just needs to take a breath and sit back and enjoy it for a moment, because we've been waiting for this for a long time. And even if you're a wrestling fan, women's basketball is going to be fantastic this year. I mean, it should be a fun ride.
Yeah, awesome. I look forward to doing this again. So I'll throw a couple names out at you: Robert Estes and Andrew Parker, and Jared and Ron Falencheck. Those are some of the names I remember first out of the game.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got a Falencheck story I have to tell you sometime too. So
very good. Thanks, Craig.
All right, good to see you, man. Take care.
Yep. Bye.